I want to ask you, what are you thinking right now? Someone, don't say it out loud if people are around you. Or not just what are you thinking, but what are you feeling? I think sometimes people ask us, how are you? Anyone remember when you were seeing people a lot and you were close to them and you would come to the church campus and people would say, how are you? You'd be like, I'm blessed and highly favored of the Lord. And yet maybe on the inside you were like, no, I don't feel blessed at all. Sometimes we're not really honest. So TBH, to be honest, how are you? Because I think I'm talking to someone that you feel like giving in. I think I'm talking to someone that you feel like giving up. Can anyone relate that even in this last year, there's been moments where I'm like, I don't want to help them, I want to hurt them. Am I the only one who's had challenges? Am I the only one who's had struggles? And we're going to the Apostle Paul, Philippians chapter 4, where he writes in verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. I remember as a kid, we would sing, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. That was a pathetic clap, Lindsay. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. And again, I say rejoice. And that was like the soundtrack to our lives. What is the soundtrack to your life? Are you like, no, I'm not rejoicing. I'm stressed in my life always. And again, I say I'm stressed in my life always. And again, I say I'm stressed all day and all night. I'm stressed. Is that the soundtrack to your life right now? And yet, it is amazing because almost 20 times in these 4 chapters, Paul mentions joy or rejoicing or gladness. Here's the thing. It is the theme of this letter. It is the theme of this book. And yet it was written during a time he would seem to have no reason to write it. You might be thinking, oh yeah, that's nice for him because he wasn't going through a struggle. Nice for him because he wasn't going through a challenge. Wait, hold on. This book of Philippians, which many scholars would say it is the happiest book in the Bible, was written when Paul was chained to a Roman soldier, when he was not permitted to preach in public, when he was on trial, where there was an uncertain verdict and death was a possibility. And yet we're going to see from the Apostle Paul that in your life, you are your own weather man, weather woman. And what are you saying? Are you saying, yeah, it's cloudy with a chance of meatballs or cloudy with a chance of disappointment? Or are you going to say, no, there is going to be sunshine and joy, not always rejoicing for all circumstances, but always rejoicing in all circumstances. He writes here in verse 5, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Let your gentleness be evident to all. We live in a culture where we're trying to make our own greatness evident to all. When I was a freshman in high school, in football, I broke my ankle, but I didn't know it was broken. And I injured it, and I got up, and I couldn't walk, and so my mom took me to the doctor. And they did x-rays, and they didn't quite see what was wrong with the x-rays, and the doctor's like, I think I can just push it back in, because it looked awful, it was all swollen. He's like, it'll be really, really painful, but just let me push it in, just let me push it in. And I said, Mom, just let me get a second opinion. We went to another doctor. We called a friend who was actually at that time the quarterback for a pro football team who recommended a sports doctor. I'm like, I need a pro football player to tell me what doctor to go to because I thought I was pro as a freshman on the freshman football team. And they did more x-rays and they were able to see it from different angle. And they're like, wait, hold on. It's not just broken, it's shattered. That first doctor was rough. He was not gentle. He just wanted to push it back in. And I wonder if as people on this planet, we're being harsh with those that are hurting. I wonder if we're approaching people in an insensitive way. Like Stephanie Tanner from Full House is saying, how rude. And I wonder if there's moments where we're being how rude versus being Christ-like and having consideration for others and compassion for others. Jesus himself was moved by compassion time and time again. I've heard it said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. He's saying, make sure it's evident to all. What is evident about you? People say, oh, it's evident that you want to make sure all hear your opinion, or is it evident that all want to feel your care? You might be thinking, I don't want to be gentle. Gentle is weak. No, it's not. Being gentle is not weak. Let's let others see, hear, and feel Christ's love flowing through us as we gently care for those around us. Because today we're talking about peace to, fill in that blank. Peace to what? Verse 6, do not be anxious about anything. The Greek here, it means do not be pulled in different directions. Have you found that our hopes pull us in one direction? We're hoping that this vaccine works and we get to go back to life being open and we get to finally take off our masks here. You're hoping you're going to get that promotion at work. You're hoping you're going to get into that school. You're hoping that next year when you graduate, you're going to have an actual graduation. You're hoping you're going to get approved to buy that house. You're hoping you're actually going to be able to retire. Our hopes pull us in one direction, but our fears pull us in the opposite. We're afraid that diagnosis is going to be true. We're afraid that our business is actually going to shut down. We're afraid that our marriage is going to end up in divorce. We're afraid that we're going to end up broke. So we have our hopes pulling us in one direction and our fears are pulling us in another. Kind of like if you're able to get into Disneyland, actually get tickets now that it's opening back up. And if you take young kids and you have one kid pulling this arm that way because they want to go on that ride, your other kid's pulling this arm that way, you have another little one pulling on your leg because they all want to go in different directions. Can't we just say that that's how life feels like right now? That we're being pulled in all these directions, that we feel like we're the rope in a tug-of-war game. You remember the tug-of-war when you get this group of people over there, that group, and they're each pulling and we feel like we're the rope. And I want you to know that even if you're feeling pulled in every direction, peace is available to you today. Don't be anxious, it says. To be anxious is to be full of mental distress or uneasiness because of fear of misfortune or greatly worried. Are you worried? Listen, what we're talking about today isn't a game to be conceded, but this is a battle to be conquered. We're talking about peace to what? Because many of us during this time, we're worshiping on the outside, but we're worried on the inside. What are you worried about? Some people, they're worried about circumstances. You're like, I'm happy when things go my way. Don't look at the person next to you right now. You know those people that when things go their way, they're happier. In fact, if things don't go their way, they're not easy to live with. Do you know what it's like to have someone come home from work, maybe your parent, and you're trying to see how are they going to, did they have a good day or did they have a bad day? Because it's going to determine how they're acting. But yet so many circumstances are out of our control. Just today on the way here, like I was driving and I was worried about running into too much traffic. I needed to get here on time and the tire blew. I was like, oh, are you serious? I had to hop in an Uber just to get here. That was out of my control. It's not my fault that they can't finish the 10 freeway in however many years it's been under construction. Like Paul is sitting in jail, but he's saturated in joy. If your mood depends on ideal circumstances, you will hardly ever be happy. See, some of us, we're worried about circumstances. Others of us, we're worried about people. What that person said, what that person did, how that person looked at us. Maybe just who that person is, but that works both ways because some people are worried because of things we've done or we've said or how we've looked at them or maybe just who we are. We're worried about people, but you can't isolate and glorify God. We're called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, but I wonder if our light has grown dim and our salt has become bitter. So some of us are worried about circumstances. Others of us are worried about people. Others of us, we're worried about things. We're like, wait, hold on. I lost something. I lost my wedding ring. I didn't, by the way. Some of you are like, you lost your wedding ring. Am I going to find it? Maybe you're worried, am I actually going to get that? You're saving up to buy something and you're wondering, you're worried like, am I actually going to be able to buy it? Or maybe you're worried about things because you got it and you realize it still didn't satisfy. Worried. What are you worried about? Are you worried about getting sick? Are you worried about your relationships? Are you worried about your finances? From a spiritual perspective, worry is wrong thinking and it's wrong feeling. The old English root word for it means to struggle. Not just to struggle, it actually means to strangle. Oh, yeah, that's a more accurate description of worry. Not that it's a struggle, but it's actually strangling. Are you like, yeah, I feel you. You're like all the feels. We love to say all the feels. And when you're worried, you got all the feels. You know that worry has physical symptoms? In fact, let me say it this way. Worry has physical consequences. Headaches. You can have back or neck pain. You could even get ulcers from worry. It affects your thinking. It affects your digestion. It even impacts your coordination. That's why athletes will pay these sports psychologists so much money to impact because they don't want to be worried because it'll actually impact your coordination. And medicine might be able to remove or at least deal with the symptoms, but not the cause. You know that you can purchase sleep at the drugstore? Oh, come on. Yes, some of you do, but not peace. So we're wondering, is there a prescription for peace? Because worry is an inside job. It's not what people necessarily see right away, but it's waging on the inside of us. And it doesn't just work to tell someone, don't worry about it. Or people ever tell you, don't worry about it. Oh yeah, it's cancer. Don't worry about it. Oh yeah, your spouse left you. Don't worry about it. Oh, you lost your job. Don't worry about it. That doesn't work. It doesn't work to even tell ourselves, don't worry about it. Quit worrying. But if you're willing, there is a way to conquer worry. We're talking about peace too. Are you ready to conquer worry today and experience peace? Here's what Paul says. But in every situation is every situation, which means the situation you're in right now and the situation you will be in tomorrow. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Here, let me give you 3 steps. Step 1, actually, I'm not giving it to you. The Apostle Paul's giving it to you, but it's through me. Pray. He's talking about prayer. Now, he's using the general word for making your requests known to God. But have you discovered prayer oftentimes isn't our first response? When the tire blew on the car today, I did not start praying. I'd like to say I did. I might have said some other words. I don't know who I was talking to or what I was saying, but I was not praying when that flat tire happened. And maybe that's why the Apostle Paul gets it can be worked that he doesn't start this letter. He's actually ending his letter with prayer. You know that whenever we find ourselves worrying, it should be our first action to take some time and just get alone with God, to spend time in worship, and in adoration. We don't need to be reminded of how big of the problem is or how flat the tire is. We need to be reminded of how great our God is. You remember when Daniel was faced with the lion's den because the king said, for this next period of time, no one can pray to anyone except me, the king. And Daniel did what he'd always done. And he went to his place of prayer and he opened the window. He wasn't trying to hide it. And he began to pray. He begins to follow the same outline the Apostle Paul's giving us here, taking it to God. We're being reminded of how great our God is. Too often we rush into God's presence and we try to inform God how big the problem is versus rushing into the presence of God and being reminded how great our God is. Don't forget to remember that God is greater than your problem. We're talking peace too. So it's prayer and petition. You're like, wait, what's the difference? Step 2 was petition. It's to share your needs, to share your problems, to share your struggles. But there is an implication of intensity, spiritual intensity. When you're able to head back to the gym, are your workouts at the gym intense or are they easy? You look around the gym and you're like, they're taking it easy. They're sitting, not struggling. They're taking selfies rather than sweating. Growing up, my dad would often say, he would let people know, if you'd like prayer, we have prayer warriors available to pray for you. And when I would bring friends, they would be like, what is a prayer warrior? I'd like prayer, but I am afraid of a prayer warrior. I don't want to get hurt by getting prayed for. And yet that term can be very, very misleading. But sometimes, are you like, I need to become a prayer warrior right now. I need to get intense with what I'm doing. So prayer, petition, and then Paul says step 3, thanksgiving. To give thanks. Do you remember when Jesus healed 10 lepers? How many of them came back to say, hey, thank you? Only one. And I wonder if, we're children of God who are always eager to ask, but very, very slow to appreciate. If we're like entitled kids where we just expect, but we don't appreciate. The Apostle Paul says, in every situation. I find that many people only pray about big things, only about things we think, I don't necessarily want to just take this to God. It doesn't seem big enough. So we don't pray about small things until they become big things. And if we prayed when they were small things, they might not have become big things, and it begins to eat away on the inside of us. What is eating away on the inside of you? Do you remember the movie with Johnny Depp? What's eating Gilbert Grape? What's eating away on the inside of you? Because you're holding on to it. I read about a psychology professor who opened class holding a glass half full of water and was walking around with this and said, I want to talk with you all about this glass of water. And most of the students thought the psychology professor was going to say, is this glass half empty or is this glass half full? But that's not what the professor asked. The professor looked and said, how much does this glass weigh? It's only full. It's not even all the way filled. And so some of the students would say, 8 ounces or 20 ounces, trying to guess. And what the professor was saying is that, well, let me actually tell you, it's not so much how this glass weighs right now, because if I hold this out right now for 5 minutes, it starts to get heavier. It's not that this gets any heavier, but it gets heavier to me because of how long I've been holding it. And then if I hold it for an hour, it feels even heavier. And if I try to hold it for a few hours, and it gets even heavier. And if I was to try to make it a goal to hold this thing for 24 hours, my shoulder would begin to ache because I'm holding it for too long. It doesn't look like much. And I wonder sometimes if we're holding things, and it's not just what we're holding, but it's how long we've been holding it. It's not just that we're worried, but it's how long we've been worried about it because we think it's just half full. This isn't important enough to take it to God. I want you to know nothing is too little to take to God, and yet nothing is too big for God to take care of. Verse 7, Paul says, and the peace of God. Ooh, the peace of God. Someone say peace. Peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. You don't have to fully understand it to fully experience it. In fact, if we were to be honest, we don't need a God we fully understand. That's no God at all. We don't need a God we fully understand. We need a God who fully understands each of us. This is what I like to call perplexing peace. I don't understand how I have peace. I've had people ask me before, how are you? I'm like, I'm doing good. I got peace. And they're like, wait, hold on, but I know what you're going through. Be like, I know, but I just got peace. That's why you can get that diagnosis and still have peace. That's why you can have that person walk out of your life and still have peace. That's why you can have your finances a mess and still have peace. Remember, the Apostle Paul is chained to a Roman soldier. He is guarded day and night, but maybe he's not really guarded by the soldier. Maybe he's guarded by the peace of God. You need to get that the peace of God stands guard over you day and night, 24/7, peace to. And he says here in verse 8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever. Someone say whatever. He's going to tell us to think about whatever, but it's not what you think. Whatever is true. Whatever is noble. Whatever is right. Whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Most of us think about whatever we see on the news, whatever comes up on our phone, whatever this person tells us. It's like, wait, hold on. He's saying, no, wait, well, hold on. Peace involves the heart and the mind. We read in Isaiah 26:3, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Wrong thinking leads to wrong feeling. And over time, our thoughts and our feelings begin to pull apart, and we begin to feel like life is pulling us apart because thoughts are real and powerful, even though you cannot see them or hear them unless you talk to yourself. But here Paul is clearly stating what we should think about. Someone's like, I don't know what I should think about. Paul's telling us. He's saying think about what's true. Sometimes I'm talking to people and they're telling me things that they're worried about. I'm like, is it true? Is it really true? I read a study that only 8% of what people worry about were legitimate concerns. The other 92%, did you just see me do math right there? Ooh, that was like, got it. The other 92% were either imaginary, would never happen, or involved matters they had no control over. You need to know the enemy is a liar. The enemy is a deceiver. The enemy approaches us like the serpent was approaching Eve. This last week, I was visiting my oldest Ian in Arizona, and all of a sudden, I'm not even kidding you, this long snake comes out and begins to slither, coming right at me. You need to know that the enemy is sneaky. We got to wait, hold on. Is it true? But Paul says, make sure whatever is noble. Don't focus and don't think about things that are dishonorable. Whatever is right. You can't think wrong and live right. Whatever is pure. Oh, if I had time, I'd go into this because he's actually talking a lot here and implying that we need to have thoughts that are sexually pure. Whatever is lovely. Lovely here is talking about, is it beautiful? You need to have a beautiful mind. Was that Russell Crowe? The movie Beautiful? He said, you need to have a beautiful mind. Whatever is admirable. Admirable, you're looking up to it. Like, wait, are we always thinking about things to look up to, or or to look down to. Whatever is excellent. I was born in San Dimas Hospital. I grew up in San Dimas, and when people would ask me where I'm from, I'd say San Dimas, and the only reason they knew about it was because Bill and Ted's excellent adventure. And I wonder if Bill and Ted, if they could see our thought life, if they'd go excellent or something else, whatever is praiseworthy. So much of what we think about causes us to have a panic attack. What about if you start thinking about things that'll cause you to have a praise break? Think about that, which is going to build your life up, not tear it down. We're talking peace too. Verse 9, he says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. Paul taught the word and they heard it, but he also lived it and they saw it. That's why we need to learn and we need to live. And we need to learn and we need to live. And today we're learning what to think about, and then we need to start living it. It's one thing to learn, it's a whole nother to apply it. Understanding just these facts that are in our head, it's not going to be enough. It needs to become truth that penetrates deep into our hearts. You cannot separate outward action and inward attitude. For years, I've heard so many different speakers quote this. I don't even know who first said it, but it says, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. If anyone had a reason to worry, it was Paul. He's facing possible death, being mistreated. If anyone had to worry, he had, but he didn't worry, and he's not holding on to that secret. He's given us the secret to conquering worry, because peace isn't the absence of trials on the outside, but it's the absence of turmoil on the inside. And he closes our portion here today and he says, and the God of peace will be with you. There is the peace of God which guards us, but there is also the God of peace that guides us. Driving, if you're texting, which you shouldn't, or if you're just a really bad driver, you start running over those bumps in the road, which show you you're leaving your lane. And I think sometimes worry can be a healthy thing if also we realize, wait, hold on. We're starting to go into a direction with our thoughts that we shouldn't go. Or even we're starting to head into someone else's lane. Wait, hold on. We need to live in our lane. We need to live our life. Earlier in the Apostle Paul's journey, he tried to go into one direction. He was going to share Jesus in that area, but guess what? No, God shut that door. And it happened again. He was going to take it into another region, but God shut that door. It's amazing that we have a God who not only opens up doors, but he'll shut doors, because God was guiding and he was guarding the Apostle Paul. Here's the thing. Sometimes we look at our lives and we're looking at some of the closed doors. We're not realizing God is closing those doors because he's opening up other doors. And we think that we're being restricted, but we're actually being released. The Romans didn't know that the chains that they put on the Apostle Paul didn't restrict him. They would release him. He was chained, but he was never more free, because the word of God cannot be bound. What God wanted to do through the Apostle Paul and was going to do could not be stopped. And what God wants to do in and through your life cannot be stopped. The Apostle Paul was not a prisoner of Rome, but he was a pioneer for Jesus. You need to get that into you today, because when we receive and give our hearts to God, we receive peace with God, but we need to go further with it. We can go further, and we can receive the peace of God, which will guard us. And we can also be led by the God of peace, which guides us. We need to take it further. And someone you need to know today, peace to what? Peace to pioneer. That we are pioneers of heaven. We're not prisoners of earth. Many of us, we feel like prisoners because we have to do this, can't go there, can't do this, and we feel like, wait, hold on, I feel like I've been locked up. I feel like I'm in prison for what I want to do, but God's like, no, you're in exactly the spot you need to be. And if we can make up in our minds that we've got to think right, because our thoughts lead us and impact our feelings, because God is taking you into a new season. You're going to step into that season, and you're going to have, okay, hold on. No matter where I go, I know that the peace of God is going. It's going to guard me. But not only that, I know that the God of peace is guiding me.